Well, good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you're listening from. My name is Paul Andrews from Tools of Practice. Welcome to another of our Avant webcasts that we do monthly. Thrilled to have you here today. We're fresh off of our 2022 Synergy New England conference where we had Avant teach a couple of classes, including the two on the line, Deb Zolla and Amy Cutter. Amy's going to be our presenter today. A couple housekeeping points. This is for one CEU because you're listening live. You have to attend the entire presentation to earn that credit. The CEU certificate will be issued to you. Usually takes a couple of days and it'll be sent to the email address you registered with. Next slide. If you'd like to ask a question of our presenter, you can use the question box, which is part within the webcast toolbar that's usually hanging out on the right-hand side of your monitor or screen. You can click on the little dash next to question to expand that box, the little arrow, and then type in your question. Be sure to hit send. So the question will show up on our end, and we will answer those at the end of the presentation in the order that they are received. And with that, I'm going to introduce our Avant rep, our good friend of Tools of Practice, and a friend of mine, Deb Zolla from Avant. Welcome, Deb.
Thank you, Paul. It's always great to be here. And by the way, congratulations on a very successful Synergy conference last weekend. You had such interesting speakers, and again, one of whom is here with us today, waiting in the wings. And it was really great to see so many longtime friends face to face and meet new ones. We are glad you're here as we soon say goodbye to winter and welcome spring. In case this makes you feel like singing, you're going to love today's topic, vocal health. We'll learn how PBM therapy is a dynamic treatment to protect, treat, and as our speaker says, love our larynx. I'm Deb Zolla, welcoming you to PBM and Vocal Health, presented by our returning and accomplished laser educator and friend, Amy Cutter. First, here's a short disclaimer I'll read, if you could advance the slide, from the manufacturer Avant Wellness is a company that designs, develops, and manufactures medical lasers used for non-invasive treatment of pain and inflammation. While they certainly know a lot about health and wellness, the company also includes a very specific medical disclaimer, as all companies must. Avant does not provide medical advice or make any specific treatment claims other than the FDA cleared indications, which are for temporary relief of minor muscle and joint pain and stiffness, minor arthritis pain, or muscle spasm, and the temporary increase in local blood circulation, and the temporary relaxation of muscles. Now, for the reason that you're here, it is truly my pleasure and honor to welcome today's vibrant speaker, the one, the only, Amy Cutter.
Well, thank you so much. Is it possible that some of the smartest people in the world don't know how to spell? Not that spelling has anything to do with actual intelligence. Some of the smartest people I know can't spell very well at all. But I ask because LASER is an acronym for light amplification by stimulated emission of radiation, right? It's supposed to be a focused, coherent beam of light which emits photon energy, but more accurately, it is oscillation, not amplification. But they didn't want to use the other acronym to be changed to loser, so they left well enough alone, which I get. But wait, isn't that supposed to be an acronym as well? Yes, it is. And don't worry, I know that it looks a little odd, but WALT stands for the World Association for Photobiomodulation Therapy. Where's the L? I don't get it. Anyway, I ask because photobiomodulation therapy is not the correct acronym, obviously. I want to point out that the WALT organization, or the World Association for Laser Therapy, though it has kept the acronym, has officially changed its name to the World Association for Photobiomodulation Therapy. And that might seem goofy, but to me, it's really significant. They agonized about that because this technically most accurately referred to as photobiomodulation is that not all lasers do the same thing, right? I want you to remember that, okay? Not all lasers do the same thing. When we talk about it, please keep in mind that we're talking about photobiomodulation. And remember, in medicine, there's a whole vocabulary of very specific terms that all medical professionals are expected to learn so that we can all say and mean the same thing. And I belabor the point because there's different parameters for different issues. Sometimes infrared is better, sometimes red is better, power is important, and the research is pouring out now. To date, there's more than 7,500 peer-reviewed articles available with just a simple PubMed search, and there's more being published daily. Photobiomodulation, while it's a mouthful for sure, kind of breaks it down beautifully. Photo, or light, bio for biology, and modulation to balance or modulate. Just explaining that to clients helps them to understand more deeply what it is that we're doing when we're applying these therapies. And it takes the scary factor away. Look, I've been a massage therapist for 25 years and it's better now, but when I started, there was a giggle fest that happened when I said I was going to school for massage. The connotation was always of a sexual nature, and I had to endure more than one happy ending joke. But little by little, and by maintaining professionalism, even when I wanted to punch the ignorance out of their faces, its efficacy prevailed, and massage is now widely accepted and indeed prescribed by doctors more often than not. Trust me, that was not the case years ago. This is the same. All we need to do is persevere, and I believe its efficacy will speak for itself. And I used to have clients ask me, well, if laser works, why doesn't everybody have one? To which I would either answer, I don't know, or say, they don't know what they don't know. And not very far in the future, everyone will have one and understand how it works, and the world will be a better place for it. However, in order to get to that place, we all need to be able to communicate with our clients, patients, and students. And in order to do that regularly, we have to be able to maintain our vocal health. So let's jump in. We all know about the paper cup, like the paper ketchup cup, but it looks like it's a dainty little biodegradable cup. They don't hold much, but did you know that they have the potential to utilize this little wonder in a different way? It's not even hard, but those little seams open up, and that allows you to triple the amount of its potential. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Janine Driver, in a TEDx talk, introduced me to that concept, and it resonated so well that I just had to rip it off. I know some practitioners that have lasers in their office, but they almost never really utilize them, or they're not utilizing to their full potential. And it's not even hard, it just needs to be explored. So remember that simple is usually best. Today, excuse me, I'm going to introduce you to a few of my favorite techniques. I truly believe that simple is best, right? So drinking more water, eating more greens, breathe deeper, sleep more. If everybody did that, a lot of ailments that we have would just vanish. For those who've seen my presentations on the vagus nerve, you may recognize this guy. He is Sir Vagus of parasympathy and afferents, and I call him that because I was a little obsessed with The Crown, Victoria, and Bridgerton. Those are all shows that portray the royal court and how they operate. Inevitably, in all of those shows, there's one guy who keeps an eye on the court and everything that's going on and reports back to the queen. For our bodies, the vagus nerve is that guy, and the queen is our brains. I'm kind of big on working metaphors to help me remember things. So almost 75% of the parasympathetic nervous system is based on this guy. He's kind of a ringleader and a busybody, or what my nana would call a washwoman. He reports back and forth to the queen, relaying messages and letting the queen know what's going on in the rest of the body. This wonderful wandering nerve, remember, goes all the way from the brainstem to the colon. But by addressing it and a few of the other cranial nerves, both with and without photobiomodulation, we can vastly improve our results. But first, let's talk about what not to do. I usually save this for the end, but even though they seem simple, they're pretty important. These are the biggest culprits of vocal quality and how to avoid or work around them. The first one is chewing gum. From the Journal of Physical Therapy Science, chewing gum decreases vagal tone. So it takes a lot of work from your masseter muscles and other muscles of chewing in your face, which stimulates the trigeminal nerve, which ultimately stimulates your sympathetic nervous system and puts your body into a state of stress. So no gum chewing. Never have alcohol on performance days. Some teachers say no alcohol ever. I'm not that girl. I like my wine. But if I had a gig on Broadway where I was doing 8 shows a week, I would become a teetotaler. Musicians on tour, it's really easy to get sucked into the lifestyle, but it takes a much larger toll than you think. Loud talking. Talking in a crowd like this will strain your voice. It becomes a real challenge for a person touring a bar circuit. People want to chat and yuck it up after a set. And that used to be a viable way of building a fan base, but it's really hell on your vocal cords. Conference centers are the same. Deb Zala was talking in a loud hallway all day long, and then she had to present, right? I know a lot of chiropractors who talk to patients all day and then run informative classes in the evenings. And all of that can be very fatiguing. Wait, where am I? I missed one. Oh, well, here we go. Never, 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 never take antihistamines. Sorry about that. Antihistamines, if you take them on or just prior to a performance day, they're going to dry you and your vocal cords out. And there's just no way you're going to get around that. It's going to be 10 times harder and cause way more damage than you can imagine. So I want you to try this instead. 2 drops each of lavender, lemon, and peppermint. I always use a pharmaceutical grade oil, which means that they can be ingested with no worries. Lemon is said to cut mucus. Peppermint will open your sinuses, and lavender is a natural antihistamine. So how I do this is I would get 2 glasses. When I was performing on a regular basis, I would ask for a glass of water and then an empty glass. And then I would add the oils to my water and sip them all night. But the best way to do it is to get 2 glasses. If it's not busy and you don't mind asking your bartender to give you just a shot's worth of water in 1 glass, you can use that. And then a full glass in the other one. Or you can just get 1 empty glass and 1 full glass and do it yourself. So you pour a shot's worth of water into the empty glass and add your oils and then gargle with that mixture for 30 seconds. 30 seconds is way longer than you think when you're gargling, and then swallow. Gargling is a way to stimulate the vagus nerve as well as a good way to really work those oils into your tissues that you're trying most to help. Now you're going to refill that glass that you just had the oil in with the water from the other glass, and you can sip on that for the rest of the day. The oils are so strong that the residual on the glass will stick to it, and when you refill it, it kind of revitalizes all of that. So water is really vital, but let's clarify some myths about dehydration. There are a lot of opinions being dished out as fact on just about every subject on the planet now, right? There was a pretty simple experiment done with 3 men in Egypt. 2 of the men were aligned with their country's version of the left and the right, politically speaking. The third guy was not political at all. It sounds like a punchline is coming, but there's not. All 3 were standing together and did a simple 1-word search at the same time. They all typed in the word Egypt. The guy on the right had articles and news feeds supporting the right view. The guy on the left got articles and news feeds supporting the left. And the guy who is not political came up with best places to visit in Egypt. So depending on where you're looking for information, you will hear differing, sometimes juxtaposed versions of what's best. Always bear that in mind. And as doctors or healthcare providers, I boldly suggest that it is your job to always question our knowledge as to what we believe to be proven fact changes as science evolves, right? Everything that we know now is changing constantly. We are duty bound to listen and remain open to change and other options. Not to do so is tantamount to malpractice. And that applies when you're looking for a laser as well. Everybody is going to tell you that theirs is the best. So arm yourself with information and figure out what works best for you and your practice. Although I'm likely preaching to the choir with most of this group, it's still important. So another myth, there is no such thing as drinking too much water. The fact is, overhydrating can be extremely dangerous, but it is relatively rare. Drinking too much water leads to hyponatremia. When levels of sodium in the body are so diluted, your cells begin to swell. This can cause nausea, vomiting, headache, confusion, fatigue, and it could even escalate to seizures and coma. Next myth, everyone needs to drink 8 glasses of water a day. This general rule of thumb is outdated, and it was influenced by mostly big bottled water companies. In 2002, Heinz Valton, MD, a retired physiology professor from Dartmouth Medical School and author of 2 textbooks on kidney function, published the definitive paper on the subject in the American Journal of Physiology. He spent 10 months searching medical literature for scientific evidence of that 8x8 rule, only to come up empty-handed. In 2004, the Institute of Medicine, a division of the National Academy of Sciences, actually set the adequate daily total intake of higher than 64 ounces to 125 ounces for men and 91 fluid ounces for women. Other sources say 102 ounces for men, 78 ounces for women. So there we go again with differing opinions. I'm going to suggest that body weight has a lot to do with it, and a good rule of thumb is to divide your body weight in 2 and drink that many ounces per day. So example, if you're 200 pounds, you want to drink 100 ounces. I like to maintain that this is a good goal for people, because if you tell them that they have to drink 100 ounces of water, they're going to be in the bathroom all day, they're going to get frustrated, and they may quit. But if they can just drink more water than yesterday with the goal being 100 ounces or whatever it is for their body, then they're more likely to get there. 5% change is a statistically significant number, right? So celebrating even small gains may keep them more motivated. Next myth, clear urine is a sure sign of dehydration. While keeping an eye on your urine output may be not the most pleasant summer activity, the color is a good indicator, but it's not clear urine that you're looking for. Rather, it's a pale yellow that is good. And here's a fun little chart for you. And if you notice at the very bottom, it says that if it's dark brown like that, it says drink 2 bottles of water right now, right? It's like, do not pass go, drink 2 bottles of water. Oh my God. So exercise and hard work needs sports drinks. If you're working out for less than an hour, water will do just fine. You don't deplete electrolyte and glycogen reserves until you've been exercising intensely or performing moderate to hard work in heat or humidity for more than an hour. The best electrolyte drink is coconut water, and that comes without some of the junk in some of the popular sports drinks, like those fancy colors and lots of sodium, blah, blah, blah. On a performance day, especially, consuming watermelon, melon, and cantaloupe are a good option to keeping yourself hydrated. It's thought that they coat the throat, and although they have natural sugars, they do not produce any sticky side effects that processed sugary foods will. There's an alleged story about a performer who shall remain nameless because the story has never been verified by me, so it's only hearsay, but suffice it to say he's a top level guy. He was playing at an arena and he was drinking lots of water, which made him, of course, have to pee a lot. And the bathroom closest to the stage was out of order, and he had to walk pretty far to get to the next one. And that was all in the middle of a show. And anybody who's been in an arena before, you know, it can be pretty good distance between one bathroom and the other. So that made him late for his cue. The story goes that his vocal advisors recommended more melons on concert days, and it is in his contract now that there must be a working bathroom close to the stage, as well as melon and watermelon and those types of foods available for him in his green room. So enough myth busting. Let's get physical. I'm sorry, I can't help myself. I saw this ridiculous picture and I had to include it. I love Olivia Newton-John, and I am a child of the 80s. This is called the Simba. To blend movie quotes from The Green Mile and The Lion King, Simba sounds like The Lion King, only spelled different. If you simply stick your finger in that little space and you push on it lightly at first, just making little circles, it will help stimulate the vagus nerve. And that's where an electronic vagal stimulator would be located for an external stimulation device. There is an electric device that you can use that's not surgically implanted, and it looks just like an electric toothbrush. I've actually recommended to people that they can always pull the head off of your toothbrush and use the end of it to stimulate this area. You can always also put it behind your earlobe to treat some vertigo issues, which is kind of cool. This is what it looks like when you use the laser to stimulate this area. You can use the acupuncture head to get very, and these pictures are the same spot, just with the power on and power off for clarity photos. You could do 30 seconds of infrared and 30 seconds of red, or you can just use the regular head and stimulate the point with your fingers. Once you teach them in your office, patients can always stimulate that spot at home as additional self-care or homework. So when I am treating a musician especially, I use the following stretch to a giant percentage of my clients. It's just a great way to start to get the body warmed up and ready to go. I have them lay on the table with their clothes on, because it's easier to do this with clothes on than it is to try and get draping just right when you're moving them. I place them in a figure 4 with a foot on the medial aspect of that opposite leg. And then I pick up that bent knee and I place my lower leg on the table underneath them. This becomes a little bit like a blocking technique, but it's really easy for me to just shift my body weight slightly and create a big stretch for them. I'm palpating their SI joint there in that photo. Sometimes I'll pick up the leg a couple of times just to the point of resistance, but the key is to have them push against you as if they're driving their leg to the floor through your leg for a count of 8. Then when they release, I have them take a deep breath all the way in and all the way out. And then without the patient resisting, I work with the exhale and lift the leg back up to the point of resistance, which is now going to be higher than it was before. You can see here that I brace that foot against the medial aspect of the opposite knee with my hand, just for stabilization, so that his foot's not flopping around when I'm lifting it. This is approximately where I place the laser when performing the stretch. It's really just a fancy PNF, or that stands for peripheral neuromuscular facilitation techniques, if anybody doesn't know, but it works really well for most people. I use it for every singer 100% of the time, unless they have restrictive hardware from a previous surgery. And as a side note, this has released more than one frozen shoulder with just one stretch. If I had to only teach one massage technique for the rest of my life, this would be the one. I was told when I learned it that the shoulder and the hips should be considered one joint separated by different tissue. And just as food for thought, anytime there's a shoulder issue, I address the SI joint first. Um, Several baseball players and softball players think that I'm some kind of a witch because I point a light at them and then I move their hips and they're able to move their shoulders. That's yet another thing that I love about my job. So again, here you can do 30 seconds of infrared on the spot and do the stretch, and then switch to red and do the stretch again. Because you're moving them, I pull that laser back a bit and use it on the red, and then I'm able to move through there. Here's another place where we can laser for musicians. Remember, it only takes one photon to begin the cascade that speaks to the cells that we want to communicate with, but closer is better if you can get it. When I'm working with singers, I place them supine on the table and ask them to breathe in. I follow the diaphragm down with the breath and tuck my fingers up and underneath that rib cage to release tension there. While the phrenic nerve is the primary motor neuron for the diaphragm, the vagus nerve does have motor functions at the diaphragm, making it another important place to address. Singers are oftentimes very tender in this region. Having tight or sticky muscles here incapacitates the ability to let the diaphragm fully engage and allow the lungs to expand to full capacity. Air is the key to vocalizing, be it for speech or song. So the very first thing you need to do is make sure that your singers are breathing properly. It's also important to note that people with COPD tend to develop a barrel chest as a result of trying to get enough air into and out of their lungs. Teaching diaphragmatic breathing to this population helps the body take in and develop better control over those breathing muscles that will, as a result of this progressive disease, get harder and harder to accomplish. Any and all of those progressive neurological disorders, be it MS, Parkinson's, ALS, they will eventually deteriorate the ability to swallow and speak, et cetera, et cetera. If anyone in your practice has been diagnosed with these issues, please make sure that you're stimulating the vagus nerve and strengthening their overall vagal tone. It will help slow the symptoms. I believe that singing lessons should be covered under insurance for anyone with these diagnoses. And you can always look for a good singing teacher in your area as a good referral source. Utilizing photobiomodulation is great for singers, but if someone comes to you with overworked muscles and is hoarse, you can recommend the oils that we talked about. And simply lasering under the chin, pointing at the throat, will penetrate to the larynx as well as other structures. Sometimes I have singers warm up with basic humming scales and then go into some basic vocal warm-ups while I'm lasering directly at them. You can always refer to the free codes that are available on Dr. Richard Amy's website for very comprehensive, very specific areas to point your laser. There are pictures. It is so beautifully and simply done. If you're not confident about where to go, just look there. So I have larynx codes in some of the protocol books. My favorites, I'll give them to you now. And I can type them in at the end if nobody gets it. But my favorite codes are 10, 440, 465, and 444 for general larynx, and 765, 202, 1550, and 279 for laryngeal polyps. You can enter them into the laser through the custom protocols if you don't have them anywhere on your presets. But any energy into the tissue will be good. That's another thing that I love about my laser. Not only is it easy to toggle through, but it's also programmable, as well as having different frequency options and being compact for portability, making it easy to go from room to room or farm to farm. But I digress. I've taken them backstage. Polyps are the bane of singers' existence. You cannot diagnose them without a scope, but if a patient comes to you with them already diagnosed, please, 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 if you suspect that they have them, get laser on them immediately. I always do a scale before and after we laser to test for improvement so that they will like sing a simple scale first, and then I'll treat them with the laser using the infrared and then the red, and then I'll have them sing the same scale again. I have a keyboard that I use, but most musicians will be able to bust out an a cappella scale on cue with no issue. So let's talk about breath. We all know that breathing is essential for our brains. James Nestor chronicles his insane adventure to test what happens when he plugs his nose and becomes a mouth breather. This is on one of my top 10 book lists. This is a great book. Mouth breathing, according to several sources, is supposed to be reserved for emergencies and danger. The saying is, remember, you breathe with your nose, you eat with your mouth. So in and out through the nose during cardio exercise is optimal. If you can't do that, you can breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth. If you can't do that, you should stop. Unless a tiger is chasing you, you should stop and get your breath under control first and then resume. An article that I stumbled upon posted online by Lotus Dental, dated March 31st, 2020, titled "Mouth Breathing in Children Says," and I'm quoting, "Nasal respiration is responsible for production of nitric oxide. This nitric oxide inhaled via nasal respiration is known to increase oxygen exchange efficiency and increase blood oxygen by 18% while improving the lungs' ability to absorb oxygen. Nitric oxide is also a strong vasodilator and brain transmitter that increases oxygen transport through the body and is vital to all body organs, including smooth muscles of the heart and blood vessels." End quote. So why is that significant? Photobiomodulation increases nitric oxide output. And this article wasn't even trying to talk about or sell any kind of laser. And that's kind of what I'm talking about arming yourself with information. Check your sources. I don't believe in accidents necessarily, but I found this article because of the photo, and we'll get into it later on. But mouth breathing can crowd teeth and change the shape of your face. So let's look at some of the good things to help us breathe correctly. Very popular breathing hack has been termed box breathing. It's also been called autogenic breathing. So that is in for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, hold for 4. This technique's been utilized to treat anxiety as well as other things from everybody from psychologists to Navy SEALs as a matter of fact, my husband taught it at the police academy. You can have your patients use this technique while putting the laser just under that xiphoid process, like we saw in about lasering the diaphragm, or you can aim it at the sternum. You can use a neuroemotional code and point it at the root of the vagus nerve at the neck. It really doesn't matter, and it will be just as effective. So start experimenting and see what works for you. It's a really wonderful homework assignment. And can be printed on a sheet of paper or a business card that they can keep with them in their wallets with your contact information on it. Having something to refer to helps with compliance, right? Most people are just really busy, and despite intentions, new habits can be hard to forge, especially when you tell people that they aren't breathing. They tend to look at you like you're a little off your rocker. I like to give lists and examples. You can always text them with assignments so that they always have it with them. Here's another singer's breathing exercise. You're going to lay on the floor with your hands on your abdomen and breathing into your belly. Try not to move your rib cage or your chest, and fill the air into your belly button for a count of 5. And then you exhale fully to a count of 10 through pursed lips. The reason we use pursed lips is because we want it to be slower. The numbers are just for example, and that's for beginners really. The idea here is to inhale for half as long as you exhale. So you're going to exhale twice as long as you inhale, and then repeat it 8 times. And that seems really simple, I know, but it's actually really challenging for most people. This does a few things. It teaches singers about breath control, which is vital, and it helps develop proper breathing. Americans on the whole are high chest breathers, which means that we mainly utilize the upper lobes of our lungs, and we're not taught how to breathe utilizing the diaphragm. Most people, when asked to take a deep breath, will breathe into the upper lungs and not fully into your diaphragm. So we just haven't been taught that way, and it takes some practice to undo anything habitual. So if you're having a challenge getting your diaphragm to move with an inhale, try flipping over. Laying prone, take a breath in and notice what part of your body touches or moves first. From this position, it will be your belly. It's automatic for the diaphragm to engage in this position. Then try turning over again and get the belly to rise on the inhale again. When you can do that, try to imagine the air around an inner tube inside your body and filling it all the way around 360 degrees. The bonus here is as you're counting your breath, your brain is nudged into a linear or logical state. So it's also good for anxiety. As a vocal coach, if a student can't master this, I won't let them start singing because there's just no point in singing if you aren't breathing properly. However, when they get it, they're grateful, and it can really be a game changer. This is by far the best and most comprehensive neurologically based training manual that I've ever seen. And I've been searching for a long time. When I was looking for some vagus nerve information, I stumbled on this guy. So I checked him out and I found that he was really on point. Then I contacted him and knew if he knew anything about photobiomodulation. He didn't. So I asked to meet. And now I'm convinced that he was my brother and we were separated at birth. We both work with musicians. We both utilize neurology, specifically the cranial nerves, to strengthen them. And then we attended the Carrick Institute in Florida for a neurology essentials class together, best class ever. His name is Andrew Byrne. He works in the heart of the theater district and has many, many famous clients, though he has never once name dropped to me. A fact that makes me love him more because he treats the 12-year-old kid the same as the Broadway star. He is brilliant and wonderful at breaking down exercises so that you can understand why you're doing something, and encourages you to pay attention to your progress and make a plan for your body and your issues, right? So most teachers have a set of drills or things that they do and they run through, with their students all the time. The thing is, that not all things are necessary or even good for all bodies, right? Bioindividuality means that not every exercise is good for everybody. So I highly recommend this book for all, even if you have no interest in treating musicians. The drills in it are outstanding and seriously the most thorough and comprehensive manual I've ever seen. If you have any high-level serious singers, please make sure they get this book. I bought the audiobook and the hardcover versions. I mostly listen to books, but I found that for this particular one, it was wonderful tool for like reference material. It's just easier to flip through a page than it is to try and figure out where it was on the audiobook. I simply add photobiomodulation to each exercise. And I'm teaching a 6-week class for musicians specific to this starting this summer. Here's the slide that I was referring to earlier. Is there proper placement for your tongue? It sounds like that should be an individual thing, but it's not. your tongue has its own very specific place that Andrew Byrne calls the spot. It should be behind your teeth on the roof of your mouth. And if you suction, you'll feel your tongue suction right up to the top of there. If you muscle test yourself placing your tongue on the roof of your mouth in the spot and then deliberately not placing it there, you will notice a marked difference. And the way to muscle test that is to put your tongue in place and tuck your chin, put it in the spot and tuck your chin. Then you have somebody else place the palm of their hand, not hit, place the palm of their hand on your forehead and try and force your head back. And then you do the same thing repeated with your tongue deliberately not in the spot or depressed. This is not just for singers, it's for everyone. This position can not only change the shape of your face, but can make breathing through your nose a thing, which not only has the ability to change brain fog, headache, surface dehydration, and other things, but it can improve posture and balance. If a client is having a balance issue and you're doing any rehabilitation exercises in the office, have them placing their tongue in the spot and note if there's an improvement. If you can, like if you're doing balance exercises, place the tongue in the spot, laser at the same time while they're doing a balance exercise. So you're stacking treatments for better outcomes. In the book, The Singing Athlete, Andrew Byrne poses that because of the fact that the muscles responsible for lifting the tongue into the spot is innervated by the vagus nerve, and remember that runs from the brainstem to the colon. So simply keeping your tongue in the proper place could help you improve vagal tone, thereby upregulating a myriad of body systems. In 2013, there was a pilot study published in the Muscles, Ligaments, and Tendon Journal. It was shown that dancers were 30% stronger when they put their tongue in the right place. So this is the moment that we would be pairing off if we were all sitting together to do this exercise. It's a way to check the vagus nerve. Looking at your uvula, you could do it in a mirror, you would gently have somebody say, ah, 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 repeatedly. If there's a deviation to one side or the other after a few repetitions, there's a weakness in the vagus nerve. I'm not a chiropractor, but I've also read that that is also an indication that C1 is out. So if there's a deviation, you can laser in a few key places. You can put the laser on the nerve root for 30 seconds of red and then 30 seconds of infrared, and then do the same thing just along the SCM for 30 seconds of red and 30 seconds of infrared. Dr. Amy prefers to do infrared first and red second. I don't always do this, only because infrared tends to have an analgesic quality. And in some instances, I'm changing frequencies to check for specific issues more as a diagnostic tool. If they go away because of the analgesic qualities, I may lose the ability to diagnose the issue. But honestly, I feel either way works just great. Let's just get it in there. So after you laser them, you're going to recheck that deviation. If it's still weak on one side, you can start digging deeper. Maybe you want to laser the ipsilateral PMRF or the contralateral cortex. It won't be the same for every person, which is actually one of the things that I love the most about my job. Just when I think I get it, somebody throws you a curveball, keeps life interesting, and drives me to keep taking classes. And remember, science is evolving. I'm really, really, truly excited to be able to practice now. The invention of the fMRI and laser, I believe, are two of the biggest revolutionary game changers since the invention of penicillin, and the world will catch up. While you're there, let's do a soft palate flex and tongue drop as part of a warm-up routine. I learned this exercise from Carrie Cole, who is a vocal coach. She's a holistic vocal coach in New York City. Also, lots and lots of very famous people under her guidance. You open your mouth in a mirror, watching for the soft palate to flex or rise at the same time that the tongue drops. The action is what you would feel in the very beginning of a yawn, and I'm afraid I'm going to yawn. Every time I say that sentence, it makes me yawn. I'm waiting. No, I'm good. Okay. But that creates a large space for sound to resonate in. And it's a great workout for these vital singing muscles because they're really tiny, right? That's like what they used to say about my Nana. They're small but mighty. The idea here is to hold it a few seconds, release, and repeat. So then you're gonna laser it. You can laser the same spots, or you can just point it right directly in their mouth. And along that SCM, there's an acupuncture head on the laser that you can use. That would help you get, sorry, I can't help myself, laser specific with the area that you want to innervate. But the point is, again, to get the energy into the cells, and don't get too caught up with what's correct. It's all correct. Just get the energy into the muscle and it will do its job. Another warm up, basic lip trills on a scale or an arpeggio. An arpeggio is a 1 3 5 8 5 3 1 of a scale. Most musicians will know that you don't have to really worry about it. But they serve as a multi-purpose warm-up. They help with breath control. They're a really good gauge of tension that you may not be consciously aware that you're holding. But you cannot do a lip trill if you have tension in your facial muscles. So if you start on a scale with a lip trill and halfway through you can't do it, it's usually because you have tension in your face. And oftentimes just simply gently touching your cheek will release the area and allow you to continue. Alternately, you can do a tongue trill, which is similar to what my mom affectionately calls the Bronx cheer. Think Archie Bunker here. She's allowed to say that. That's where she's from. But it's the same technique, except you're going to do this one with your tongue out. I have a personal preference for a lip trill, but whatever floats your boat. If I only had a few minutes to prepare for a spontaneous performance, if someone said, Amy, can you sing in 10 minutes? I would run scales with a lip trill or a tongue trill, do a few reps of a soft palate flex and tongue drop, do some deep diaphragmatic breathing, and be on my way. So, finger rub tests. These are some neurological testing. Singing is very much dependent upon hearing. Using your dominant hand, lightly rub your thumb and forefinger together in front of your right ear. Then using the same hand, reach around your head and rub the same fingers together in front of your left ear. Are the volume and quality the same on both sides? If you noticed a muddier side, Andrew suggests listening to some high frequency music in the weaker ear more regularly. I suggest for those fortunate enough to have a laser, you can laser the brain and cranial nerves. I would laser the ipsilateral PMRF on the muddy side for 2 minutes. You could simply laser the ear that is muddy. Here you can just use a simple muscle code, or you can laser under the organ setting for ear. Keep it simple, see what works, just get in there. Tinnitus or tinnitus for my Canadian friends. Healthyhearing.com says about 90% of people with tinnitus also have hearing loss. Loud noises can damage cells in the inner ear as well as the nerves that carry information to the brain, leading to both hearing loss and tinnitus. This is known as noise-induced hearing loss. Musicians are disproportionately plagued by tinnitus, even though they often keep the problem hidden. It's like a dirty little secret. Believe it or not, researchers don't know exactly how loud noises can cause tinnitus. The hypothesis is that it creates synapse damage. We believe when there's a problem, the trouble zones go through transneuronal degeneration, or TND. Before it dies, it becomes very excitable, resulting in a hypersensitivity, constant firing pattern. In The Singer's Gift, Andrew explains that we can assume that there's an area of the brain being underutilized. In an effort to prevent further damage, the neurons force you to notice them by creating a piercing, ringing tone. It's like a child throwing a tantrum, saying, pay attention to me, right? I use an app called a tone generator. You slide the pitch on the app until it matches the pitch of the ringing in your ears. Hold the phone in front of your ear for a few seconds, and at the same time, set the laser to ear and point it directly at the ringing ear. I usually do this while the patient is lying supine. I lay my phone near their ear and put the laser on a stand so that I may actually work the ear. I gently pull down toward the shoulders and laterally. Chiropractors can do a pinna adjustment while all of this is going on. Again, you're stacking treatments. The tone generator, photobiomodulation, massage, and if applicable, chiropractic. I would do this for about 2 minutes, and then I ask to reassess the tone quality. If it's still there, it may be a different pitch. So then you can slide your pitch to match it and repeat that process again. You could switch to infrared this time, but I usually make this treatment shorter. Using laser alone, I wasn't really having great luck with tinnitus, but stacking has proven a much more effective treatment solution. If you get a sudden ringing in your ear, you can try and match the pitch and quietly sing it back to the pitch. And oftentimes that stops it in its tracks. Like if you hear it, try and match it in your own head and sing back to it. Some other things to try are as follows. If you don't get any relief, you can try to lie on their side with the ringing ear up and put a small amount of cold water in their ear, wait about 30 seconds, and then they can try the same thing with warm or hot water. I always give this as homework because I'm not comfortable dripping water in someone's ear, but if you are, that's cool. But they can always get the idea from you and decide whether that's something that they want to try on their own. The other thing you can do is try smelling something that you like in the same side nostril as the ringing ear. So you plug the other nostril closed. If something pleasant doesn't work, try the same technique with ammonia. Ammonia, unlike other smells, is processed by the trigeminal nerve, which sits closer to the nerve that's causing tinnitus. And to that point, I'm sure that we've all heard the saying that what fires together wires together. So let's take a peek at the homunculus man to see if there are structures close by that we can stimulate to produce good results for our voices. With regards to neuronal mapping, the homunculus man demonstrates regions of the brain that have the most neuronal dedication. Models of the homunculus man show what we would look like if our body parts were the size in proportion to what the neurons dedicated to the areas were. I had 2 occasions last month to show clients about this brain wiring. One was a 19-year-old who had a terrible car accident, right? Broken eye socket that nearly took his eye, broken wrist, broken sternum, fractured T1, several fractured ribs, something like 36 staples in his head. I actually have before and after pictures of laser treatments in 2 weeks' time that are amazing. But of all of this, the thing that was most painful was his fingernail, which had torn completely off. The other patient was my son, who had a crush fracture from smashing it with a 3-pound hammer when he was working as a steel fabricator. In both cases, I was able to show them, based on neuronal mapping, why it hurt so bad. And I was able to laser the brain in the approximate region of the brain, as well as the nerve root and the area of involvement, to really quiet things down. In the brain mapping, we can see the areas that are close together as the neurons that are firing close by. Perhaps by stimulating an area close to an area we're trying to stimulate, we can influence through a back door. What I mean by that is, if you're looking at the brain mapping, We can perhaps stimulate the pharynx by doing some tongue or jaw exercises. We can also use photobiomodulation to laser the area of the brain that is most closely related to the area that we want to stimulate. And you can muscle test any area. Looking at the mapping, you can try to stimulate a nearby body part to strengthen that part. And the best part is you don't even need to do a full 2 or 3 minute protocol. If you want to stack the therapy, laser the correlating area of the brain while they're performing the action. Example, like they're singing a particularly challenging part of a song, and you can have them do an exercise to strengthen that area at the same time. Or pick a neurological exercise from the singing athlete and execute one that gives you a strong response, either just before or during the singing. This has nothing to do with photobiomodulation, but remember, I'm a big fan of the basics. I recommend all of my students wear a scarf, winter and summer. Think about it this way. When a football player comes off the field, especially in winter, they immediately put a jacket on to keep their muscles from getting cold, right? You want to keep all of your muscles warm. These are just a few of my favorite things. I can hear Julie Andrews singing in my head. She's a goddess in my opinion, but I digress. These are some of my favorite reads as well. As we all have similar interests, I thought I would share them. I welcome any recommendations that you guys have for interesting reads. The only one that really doesn't have to do with the vocal stuff is How to Change Your Mind by Michael Pollan, but that's too good not to include. And so there we go. The human voice is indeed the organ of the soul. Hopefully, by utilizing some of these techniques, we can communicate and continue to communicate with each other to better connect and hopefully understand each other better, especially now, right? To keep ourselves open and to be able to educate and be educated by one another. I thank you for your valuable time. I am really deeply honored to be here.
Awesome. Amy, thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was always just full of information, and I love that you're like me. You try to put as more than you can deliver to really pack the punch with information. So thank you
I
so much.
try.
And if there's any questions, I'm going to have Deb field the Q&A for that.
Yes, Amy, that was wonderful. I have a question. It came through, and it says, please clarify fMRI.
That's a functional magnetic resonating imaging processing unit. It's like an MRI, only it's functional. It's basically like a video of your brain instead of just a snapshot. So we can, for instance, you can stimulate the uh, essential oils. This is bizarre, but they did a study with essential oils. They used pure essential oils and something that just smelled like essential oils, but weren't actually essential oils. Like it smelled like lavender, but it wasn't an essential oil. And they had you under an fMRI study. And as they were sniffing, they could see different areas of the brain lighting up. And then when they did the non-essential oil that smelled like the same thing, nothing lit up. It wasn't the same. So essential oils really do something for your brain. Excuse me. What's really funny is that's about the worst thing you could do for your voice. And here I am clearing my throat every 10 seconds. So sorry about that. Do as I say, not as I do. Ugh. Anyway, that's an fMRI.
Thank you. And Amy, we have someone who is asking, would you please repeat the 3 essential oils that you recommended?
Yep, it's lemon, lavender, and peppermint. Lemon is good for clearing mucus. Peppermint will open up your sinuses, and lavender is a natural antihistamine.
Thank you. We've got some questions. I'm going to try to hurry through these. Otherwise, we'll have to get back to them.
They
One
can
of
always
them,
email me.
Yes, thank you. One of them says, have you worked with criminal minds with photobiomodulation and other stacking to affect a change?
I'm not sure what you mean by criminal minds. I have not worked with anybody that I know of, although you never know. I have worked with PTSD, anxiety, and depression with regards to laser. I actually wrote a protocol book called Deflame Your Brain. And what we do there, for, if you're talking about criminal minds and trying to exact a change, I would do brain waves and then a hormone balancing, as well as I utilize musical frequencies to kind of calm the central nervous system down. It's a whole big thing, but yeah, what I like to say, and I'm actually wearing my T-shirt, Deb, says I've got a code for that, and the basics are, if it's got a cell, you can laser it. So I love that you're thinking outside the box, and that's exactly why I'm here. That's why I do this, is to stimulate other people. I don't pretend to know more than anybody else. I just know that what I've been doing works so well that it excites me enough to make other people think, well, if I could do it, what could you do? You know, and how could we do this and how could we do that? And I think the more we collaborate with each other, the better the world will be.
Excellent. Thank you, Amy. We have several questions, but they're in-depth questions. Amy, would you give us your email number and your email address and repeat that, please, for those
For
folks that
sure.
whose
It,
questions
it's
were not answered?
yeah, I'm sorry for interrupting. But yeah, it's my name, Amy Cutter at 0528. I'm sorry. It's Amy Cutter 0528 at gmail.com. And 0528 is not only my son's birthday, but it's considered the frequency of love and the basis of the musical frequencies that I use in the Deflame Your Brain protocols. So Amy Cutter 0528 at gmail.com. I'd be happy to answer anybody's questions and elated to connect with anybody.
That's a really nice ending. And to that, Amy, I know we're at the top of the hour. And so I am going to say thank you for this wonderful presentation of photobiomodulation and our vocal health. And Amy had given me some good advice for speaking last weekend. She told me to gargle 3 minutes every day, and that would improve my vagal tone. And it was the first time I had spoken all day at a conference and at the end of the day at a microphone, and I did not lose my voice. That was pretty impressive to me because I always lose my voice. So for everybody else, if you have questions and you would like to talk with Amy, again, her address is amycutter0528 at gmail.com. And if you have questions or would like to talk about how adding this healing light can build your practice, then please call me, Deb Zola. Until then, please save the date, April 13th, when Amy returns with Dr. Rick Amy for a very popular replay of photobiomodulation, thoracic outlet, and carpal tunnel syndromes. That is a complimentary replay, not for credit, but we invite everyone to come join us. Thank you for joining us today. Happy spring, and now back to Paul.